So today I'm gonna extend what you guys learned yesterday from your iReady lesson, and I'm gonna use proportions to find scale factor and missing side lengths. So what we're gonna learn here is we're gonna learn how to set up a proportion, and in that proportion we can find both the scale factor and the missing side length. So what we're first going to do is what I want you to understand is that we have two similar figures here. Similar figures mean they're the same shape, but not the same size. And really what happens is if the height of this rectangle was blown up or it was increased a certain number of times, then the width of that rectangle was increased by that same number of times. When we're using scale factor, what's really important is that we always talk about the new figure over the old figure. So this one's going to be my new figure, and this one's going to be my old figure. So as I'm writing a proportion, I'm going to take the two corresponding sides. The corresponding sides are the sides that are in the same location of the two rectangles. So I have 24 over 12. That is the ratio of the heights, and I'm going to set that equal to 70 over x. And I get 70 over x because I'm putting the new figure over the old figure. Well, the first thing that I will notice is that fraction or that ratio that is complete is actually my scale factor. So it turns out that 24 over 12 is really equal to 2. That means my scale factor is 2. So I could just say, well, I know my scale factor is 2, so 12 times 2 is 24. And I could say x times 2, or 2x, would equal 70. So I can see that when I divide both sides by 2, I get x equals 35. So that's one way to find that missing side length. Another way is to go back and take a look at that proportion that I created and do what we call, what's called cross multiplication. Cross multiplication is when you multiply the numerator of one and the denominator of the other times the denominator and the other numerator. So 12 times 70 is 840. Like all equations, when I have a number multiplied by the x, in order to get the x by itself, we're going to divide. So it turns out that x is 840 divided by 24, which is 35, which is the same answer I got in that problem. So there's two different ways that we could solve that proportion. I'm going to show you one last way. What I do notice here, this is very similar to the first way that I showed. What I do notice here is that 24 divided by 2 is 12. So just like with any equivalent fraction, I can take that 70, divide it by 2, and find out that x equals 35. So that's three different ways that I can actually figure out the missing side length of that rectangle. I can also find my scale factor with that. So let's move on to one other problem. In this one, I have two triangles. I noticed that my 8 and my 48 are in corresponding places, and that my y and my 30 correspond. That means that they are in the same location of the different triangles. We're going to call this our old triangle, and this one the new triangle. So if I do that, I'm going to put the new over the old. So we're going to write 48 over 8. And then I'm going to put the new over the old. So I'm going to put 30 over y. So we can look at this and take a look at this first fraction here, or the fraction that's complete, that 48 over 8. And if I resimplify 48 over 8, I might notice that it equals 6 over 1. So my scale factor is 6. What that's telling me is I could do 8 times 6 to get 48. I can also take my y value and multiply it by 6 to get 30. So I could think about this as 6 times y equals 30. If I divide both sides by 6, we get y equals 5. So what this is saying is that the base of that old triangle is 5. Well, that was me using the scale factor to figure the answer. What if I use that original proportion that we created? 48 over 8 equals 30 over y. And if I cross multiply this, I get 48 times y. And I get 8 times 340. Sorry, 8 times 30, which is 240. And so now I know that 48 times y is 240. If I want my y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 48. And I find out that y equals 5, which is the same answer I got on this problem. Again, the one other way, that third way that I showed you, we could take a look at this 48 over 8 equals 30 over y. And if I notice that, hey, 48 divided by 6 is 8, I can do 30 divided by 6 to get my y value. So again, y equals 5. So again, I've showed you two different examples of how I'm going to attach this note page to this Google assignment on the video so that if it's easier for you to take a look at this and have this in front of you, that you could go ahead and print it out, or you can just go ahead and save it in your Google Drive so you can refer back to it when you're working on the Go Formative today or anytime you need it in the future.